Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, I'm going hunting for the scourge of the Open Grade League, Lickitung, to hard counter it with FURRET. FURRET is a pure normal type Pokemon, and its entire moveset has been buffed over the past couple seasons. Quick Attack, Brick Break, and Dig have all received updates. Despite this fact, FURRET is still not a Pokemon that I'd recommend if you're looking to climb Elo. However, pairing it up with a Giratina Origin and a Wigglytuff and Adaquinz's Utrecht winning core, I was able to go on a 17-8 run with the team, even against some high-level competition. Hopping into the first match, leading Giratina into Lantern, unbelievably good lead. Opponent safe switches into Lickitung, and they're going to regret that decision as in comes FURRET. Lickitung is the preferred safe switch of choice in the Great League because it's so neutral into everything. But the spicy FURRET double resists the licks from this Lickitung, while consistently hitting for super effective damage with the Brick Break. Now, Brick Break doesn't do a lot of damage, but every time it lands, another defense drop gets applied, meaning this Brick Break damage adds up more and more over time. Opponent will go for the Body Slam just before I make it to Brick Break number 3. I potentially could try and go for the farm down, but I don't want to risk it, so I'm just going to go for the Brick Break right away to guarantee that I can knock out the Lickitung and keep switch advantage. Opponent sends back in the Lantern. Come on, can FURRET make it to the Dig? Yes, it can make it to the Dig, and if they don't shield, this is going to hit for some heavy damage. The Dig connects, taking them below half health. In comes the Giratina. Opponent not only stays in, but throws energy. They're completely walled. The fact that they're staying in here is a big tell to the fact that they're weak to the Giratina in the back. So I'm going to go for the Ominous Wind when they make it to the Surf because I do win CMP. The Ominous Wind, oh no, it barely does not KO. The opponent holding on with 1 HP, making it to the Surf. In the back, they have Superior, and now I can send in Wigglytuff. This core of Giratina and Wigglytuff, as I mentioned at the start, is what helped Adaquinz win the Utrecht special event this weekend, which was pretty awesome to see because he thought outside the box and it worked out very well. And one thing that I liked about using this core in GO Battle League is it feels like either Pokemon you can give 2 shields to, and they're really good at sweeping games. We know what a 2-shielded Charmer can do with the Wigglytuff, but the normal subtyping pays massive dividends as a lot of Pokemon have ghost fast moves at the moment. Giratina is just an unbelievable core breaker. Moving into the next match, speaking of core breakers, that is a core breaker for me, leading Giratina into Whimsicott. Not a good spot to be in. I'm going to stay in because, of course, my charge attacks on the FURRET are completely walled. I build up to the Shadow Ball, bait with the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind gets the shield and gets the boost. I don't think I've ever boosted with this Giratina before. This is exciting. I do get baited, which is unfortunate. They're going to make it to the Moonblast when I make the Ominous Wind. I did get the boost. Is a boosted Ominous Wind going to KO here? No, it is not. The Whimsicott hangs on. But since I'm boosted, I may as well shield, because this way I get to control switch advantage. I get the farm down. My opponent is going to send in a Shadow Wall Rain. I'm farming up with the Giratina, and Giratina will bait with the Ominous Wind. A boosted Shadow Ball would hurt, so my opponent is going to respect it. I'm going to farm up 3 and switch just before I make the Ominous Wind, correctly predicting when my opponent would fire off the Icicle Spear. I get the catch onto the FURRET. I'm farming up with the FURRET, going for the Brick Break, but now it's my opponent's turn to catch. One good catch deserves another. They get the catch of the Brick Break onto Lantern. Lantern looks like they might try and farm down, and if so, I'm able to make it to this Dig. Their defense has been debuffed. The Dig connects, nearly picking up the knockout. They let themselves get as low as possible to not give my Giratina farm. I'm going to wait the timer here because I want the ability to switch. I'm only going to get 1 Shadow Claw, so I have the Ominous Wind. They have a move, so I switch into the Wigglytuff and catch the Shadow Icicle Spear from the Wall Rain onto the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff continuing to farm. Opponent firing off the Icicle Spear. I don't think this is quite going to KO. I think 2 charms will be able to KO, but I lag. The charm doesn't go through, but I have the Ominous Wind loaded, and I win charge attack priority. Giratina KOs the Wall Rain, and we take the win. Moving to the next match, leading Giratina Origin versus Skarmory. This is a lead matchup win for Giratina in all even shield scenarios. I believe the only way for Skarmory to win the zeros is to land the Brave Bird, but if you call the Sky Attack, you can win the zeros. And other shielding scenarios, Giratina, as long as it's the evens, should definitely have the advantage. They no shield, so I no shield as well. I'm going to be able to make it to the Ominous Wind. And if they didn't shield a Shadow Ball, I don't think they're likely to shield the Ominous Wind. They're just going to let this go. Opponent sends in Surfetched. Surfetched will get energy, but I have a Wigglytuff for this. I can send in the Wigglytuff. Opponent is going to let a Charm through as they fire off the Leaf Blade. The Leaf Blade connects. In the back, it's Double Fighter. It's Medicham. But this Medicham is going to be able to fire off energy. I'm going to shield the Ice Punch here. My opponent, oh no, they're running Power Up Punch. This is actually really bad. They have 2 fighters. I have the Wigglytuff, but once that's gone, all I have is the pure normal type Furret. They're going for another Power Up Punch. I just have to let this go and hope and pray that Furret can clutch here. Furret, oh man, taking these boosted counters and they're adding up. I decide to shield the Power Up Punch to preserve some HP, and I'm able to get the farm down. Opponent sends back in the Surfetched. Surfetched was 4 away from a move. They sneak, so they're now 3 away. Furret farming up, able to outpace and make it to the Brick Break. Furret KOs not 1 but 2 fighting type Pokemon, and we take the win. Moving to the next match, we see the worst case lead, Giratina into Lickitung. I save switch yet a Furret, opponent sends in Annihilate, and you cannot start a match much worse than this. Completely walled on the lead, and Annihilate can absolutely crush Furret on the save switch. Furret will fire off the dig is going to connect, but unfortunately, I am just going to get countered down. My opponent exiting with a massive amount of energy. I send in the Giratina, and I think I just have to let this go, and hopefully 2 shield Wigglytuff can clutch. It basically can only be Double Fighter for me to have a chance to win this game. If it's not Double Fighter, I just don't see a path forward. The Night Slash barely does not KO. I'm able to hang on with 1 HP remaining, fire off the Ominous Wind. I get a boost. The boost doesn't matter. I send in Wigglytuff. Oh my goodness, it's Double Fighter. It's Shadow Gallade in the back. This might be possible. Does the Gallade get to another Leaf Blade here? They do not. They get charmed down. And now it's my opponent's 2 shield Lickitung versus my Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is going to be committing the shield and going for the Icy Wind right away. This Lickitung is still extremely healthy, but the more debuffs I can apply, the better, and I still have the Giratina for a potential catch attempt if that need arises. They're firing off a Body Slam. This is a debuff Body Slam. Let's take a look at the damage. The Body Slam, oh, that doesn't do anything. I'm able to tank that quite well. I fire off another Icy Wind. The Icy Wind is going to be shielded by my opponent. I'm farming up a ton of energy here. I wait, try and go for the catch, but I don't get the prediction correct. It all comes down to this. Can they make a Body Slam plus a Power Whip? They go for the Body Slam. I definitely tank 2 Body Slams. So here it is. Is this going to be the Power Whip? Opponent fires off the Body Slam. It does not KO, and Wigglytuff is able to clutch that game. Moving to the next match, leading Giratina Origin into another Skarmory. A familiar lead for the Giratina. Giratina is going to overfarm. I like to try and play to charge attack priority, but my opponent is going to look to overfarm instead. The Shadow Ball is shielded, so my opponent clearly not a massive fan of Giratina in the back, as they do want to try and get rid of it with a Skarmory. But if they shield, I'm shielding as well. I'm looking to farm up, and that looked like it was a CMP tie. I fire off the Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball will be double shielded by my opponent. Oh my goodness. They are not a fan of this Giratina whatsoever. I am going to commit the shield. They save switch a Hakamo'o, and that is going to cost them dearly. Hakamo'o is an incredibly powerful Pokemon, but it is not a save switch. It just gets completely torn to shreds by Charm. Back in comes the Skarmory. Skarmory will be met with the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind is going to get them low. Skarmory gets farmed down. What does the opponent have in the back? They have Whiscash. Whiscash able to get a nice farm. This game, as long as I'm careful and mind their energy, this should be a win. They go for the Scald. The Scald does get the debuff. I'm farming up with the Furret, going for the Brick Break, and winning charge attack priority. So I intentionally overfarm there because I don't want them to have the ability to overfarm any extra, because now that I've debuffed them, I should be able to switch into the Giratina. In comes the Giratina, and Giratina is going to successfully win CMP over that Whiscash, and due to the debuff, the Ominous Wind KOs. Moving to the next match, we see an interesting lead, Giratina Origin into Empoleon. Now Empoleon, now that it has access to Steel Wing, makes this matchup a lot closer because they actually have fast move pressure against dragons. The Drill Peck is going to connect, that does a lot of damage. I build up past the Shadow Ball and I decide to bait with the Ominous Wind. The Ominous Wind bait does get shielded. I continue to farm up with the Giratina. Looks like the opponent is looking for a 2-shield farm down play. Okay. Well, that honestly works out pretty decently for me. I'm going to send in the FURRET. Let's see what they want to do. They send in Annihilate, and Annihilate is really not going to be a fan of this Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, unless they have close combat, I can tank whatever they throw here. Opponent is going to go for the Night Slash. That's not going to cut it, as Wigglytuff can very comfortably tank 2 Night Slashes and fully get a farm down. And I'm very close to a move, which is nice. So when my opponent sends in the Empoleon, I should be able to fire off a Disarming Voice, and that will do some pretty solid damage. In comes the Empoleon, these Steel Wings adding up, but I will be able to withstand them and make the Disarming Voice. That's going to get the Empoleon low. The Empoleon with 1 HP left. They leave with so much energy, but the Quick Attack goes through. They're not going to be able to fire off any more moves. What do they have in back? They have Shadow Gallade. Shadow Gallade, oh so deadly, thanks to that move of Psycho Cut, but with no shields. It's just not going to go well for the Gallade. The Quick Attack goes through, so I can successfully shield this. It is going to be the Leaf Blade, and they do get KO'd. Moving to the next match, leading Giratina Origin into Shadow Feraligatr. Not a good lead. I'm going to save switch into the FURRET. This is a situation where having the normal subtyping is quite nice, as Shadow Claw from Feraligatr has 0 fast attack pressure. They go for the Hydro Cannon, they're going to switch out and send in Cresselia. This is a terrible, terrible matchup for FURRET. Of course, if I had Hyper Beam, it'd still be a bit closer, but it would still not be good whatsoever. I'm just going to go for dig after dig, looking for whatever damage that I possibly can get. My hope is that this Cresselia is on the more popular moveset of Grass Knot and Future Sight. If they don't have Moonblast, then they're not going to be able to hit me for super effective damage on the Giratina. I'm going to wait the timer, send in the Giratina, and we'll have to see what they have. I'm letting this go. Do they have the Moonblast? They do! That's big damage, and unfortunately, they're going to be able to make it to another move, so I'm forced to fire off the Ominous Wind on the CMP tie. Ominous Wind will, of course, pick up the KO. They're not really going to shield here. I'm going to look to send in Wigglytuff. Oh, and it's Lickitung. It's Lickitung in the back. Maybe there is hope. I'm going to no shield. I want to try and save shields 4 moves from the Feraligatr. In comes the Feraligatr. Feraligatr firing off the Hydro Cannon. They need 3 more Shadow Claws to make it to another. Can they survive the charms? They cannot. And this is looking possible. The FURRET, unfortunately, wasn't able to do a whole lot in this game, but now it's time for Wigglytuff to put in the work. Wigglytuff going for another Icy Wind. Opponent going to have to shield this. I continue to farm with the Wigglytuff. They're firing off energy, and I'm going to no shield. This is double debuffed. This Body Slam is going to do absolutely nothing. I continue to farm up with the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff farming up energy. They're firing off their move. I have to shield this. I'm expecting them to throw 2 licks in the move, so I pause, switch, and get the catch onto Giratina. The game-winning catch. They're going to get a farm down, but it's not going to be enough. Wigglytuff makes it to the Icy Wind, and by pausing, not throwing the charm, waiting 2 turns, and catching, we're able to win that game. Moving to the next match. Oh my, we've got the mirror match, Giratina versus Giratina. I'm going to farm up to the Shadow Ball and then go for a catch onto FURRET. And it looks like my opponent had the exact same idea. They're running a much more meta normal type in the Vigoroth compared to the FURRET. That Body Slam does quite a lot of damage. I'm going to go for the Brick Break. Brick Break, not going to do a lot of damage onto the Vigoroth, but of course that does come with that guaranteed defense drop. I'll make another Brick Break. They're forced to fire off their energy, and now I have a bit of a dilemma. I don't really want to send in Wigglytuff because I'm expecting that their final Pokemon is going to be their own Wigglytuff, so I do want to keep my Wigglytuff as healthy as possible. So I send in the Giratina, go for the Shadow Ball. The Vigoroth lives on 1 HP. In these battles, I had a lot of opponents with 1 HP survives. Fortunately, they only make the Body Slam. They send in the Giratina, but theirs has a higher attack stat than mine, so they do win charge attack priority, and the Ominous Wind KOs. I send in the Wigglytuff. Opponent, oh, that's a weird looking Wigglytuff from the opponent. They actually have Cresselia in the back, and this is probably just a loss. I don't really see a way to win this game. I can try and 2-shield the Wigglytuff, but this is really not looking good. My opponent did fire off the Grass Knot that I shielded, If I no-shield a Grass Knot, because they're going to be able to get to 2 Grass Knots before I make my next Icy Wind, then we should be okay. But the opponent reads me like a book. They land the Future Sight through the shield, and this game is instantly over. They don't throw in the greatest timing here, but it's realistically not going to matter because they will be able to still make the 2 Grass Knots that they need. I try for the Charm Down as it's my only hope, but it's not to be. The Grass Knot KOs the Wigglytuff, and unfortunately, we do lose the game. Hopping to the final match, leading Giratina Origin into Pelipper. A terrific lead for the Giratina. Opponent safe switches into an Obstagoon, and there's a reason why Obstagoon is not a safe switch. In comes the Wigglytuff, but wait, they farm up to a Gunk Shot, and I realize I am not about to get Gunk Shot, so I will commit the shield. Obstagoon is still a crazy safe switch considering how popular Annihilate is. They're going to send in Pelipper. I can apply a debuff with an Icy Wind. The Icy Wind is going to be no-shielded by the Pelipper. Wigglytuff putting in so much work against this Pelipper. Pelipper has to go for a Hurricane to pick up the knockout. I'm going to let this through, and it is going to be the Hurricane. I can send in the Giratina in the back. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. It's Scrafty. I go for the Ominous Wind just to try and get a little bit of damage, and I send in the FURRET. Scrafty's a mon we haven't seen for ages. Counter users like Poliwrath, Medicham, and Annihilate have completely pushed it out of the meta, but here it is, the perfect core breaker once Wigglytuff is gone. They fire off the Power-Up Punch. They overfarmed quite a lot before they went for the Power-Up Punch, and that's actually an advantage for me. That allows me to make it to this second Brick Break, and that's going to force a shield. They're double debuffed, which means I can KO with the Shadow Ball. I'm farming up with the Giratina. Opponent switches out. They reset that defense drop, and now I think I've lost. The only way I think I can win is if I call the bait. It's the foul play, but I survive, and I'm clicking on the Shadow Ball. It all comes down to this. I know it's resisted. Can it KO? It does KO, and against all odds, with the perfect core breaker from the opponent in the back, we take the win. After starting off the season with testing all of the more meta changes, today my goal was just to go into it to have fun, and I definitely feel like I accomplished that. This team ended up being an absolute blast. I was not expecting it to perform as well as it did, although FURRET I would still caution is not a mon that I'd recommend using for climbing. It's a Pokemon that definitely does have its limitations, and in large part it was helped by the fact that the core around it, Giratina Wigglytuff, is extremely strong. I do think that this has probably been one of my favorite first weeks of a meta ever. And granted, that could just be from the fact that it's probably my strongest start from a win rate ever. I believe I'm at 89 wins through 130 games. I think I had a graphic to start the video, so it should be 89 wins and 41 losses, which of course is a completely unsustainable win rate and will not continue over the course of a season. But that is kind of how the ELO system works, is to start with, you're matched against a wide variety of people and teams at different skill levels. So oftentimes some players can have some very high win rates, but once the ELO comes out, the goal is to kind of try and match people more with people at their skill level. And when that happens, you'll win about half to 55% of your games. So the win rates definitely decline throughout the course of the season. But let me know down in the comments, how have you been liking the start of this season so far, the World of Wonders update? Personally, I've been really enjoying it. I feel like a lot of the healthy meta aspects of it from last season have continued, but I do feel like there is some nice variety and some fun to be had as well with the new stuff. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.